Yeah, I've got a decent bit to say about intensity of a PhD program if you want me to kind of
Yeah, go
talk
for
on that front.
it.
Yeah, so I feel like the intensity, the hours per week that you work is really a lot of what you make of it in the PhD program because you get to choose your boss. And so if you are not wanting to work 60 hours per week, then I think there's some red flags you can look for when you're going to visit days at schools. Before you choose your department, you can talk to professors in that school. And then after you've chosen your school, you can keep talking to professors before you officially join a lab. I think there's red flags within departments, and I think there can also be red flags within professors. There's also green flags, which I can talk about some of those too. But here's some actual things that I heard when I was going to visit weekends. And it was, oh yeah, we all work 60 hours per week, but it's not like this professor's making us do that. We just like doing it. That that doesn't that's not a good sign. All the students in a lab are working 60 hours per week. Even if it's true that the professor's not requiring it, it could then mean that if you go in and are wanting to work 40 hours per week, you're then working a lot less than all the other students in the lab, and the professor is going to see it as you being less productive. It would be a very difficult environment to be part of. I also heard professors who said, the more motivated you are to work extra, the better. The more you work, the better. And that is another kind of big red flag that I've seen. On the flip side, some green flags were professors who say, you work better when you're healthy and, your mental health is good. So make sure you're taking breaks. And I understand if, you need to do whatever. I talked to students in labs who said, I set my own schedule and I go for a long walk every afternoon to clear my mind. That might mean that he stays in the lab till 6 o'clock, but he took an hour-long walk every day. And I feel like that's a really healthy way to use the flexibility of a PhD schedule. So all this to say, there's definitely PhD students who work 60 hours a week. And some of those people love it. There's also PhD students who only work 40 hours a week. And especially once you get into the later part of your PhD program, I feel like this is very feasible. So for me right now, I'm doing primarily coursework, but also starting my research. And I've heard, this first year is the hardest year because I've got basically almost 40 hours a week of homework and classes that I'm doing, but I'm also expected to go in and do 4 hours of group meetings and do these experiments. And each experiment takes 5 hours to set up and, whatever else. So it is a tough first year, but then once I'm doing primarily research, my mentality, and I think the mentality of a lot of people in the lab, is you're being paid for 40 hours a week. So make sure you're doing the amount that you're being paid for and be flexible so that if there's times when you need to put in extra work, you're able to do that. Like, for example, your lab gets time at the synchrotron facility. You need to be able to put in the work in those days when you're at the national lab or whatever. You've got a grant application that you need to make sure your lab gets in, or you put in a paper and the reviewers put in comments and you've got to make your edits right away. There will be crunch weeks in any job, but I feel like once you're in the research part of a PhD, you can start treating it more like a standard job, and that will help with the work-life balance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just wanted to add that emphasis that it's important not just to talk to the professor, but also the people who are in the lab, like the PhD students that are in the lab too, because that gives you a more comprehensive picture of the environment that you'd be in, and also like what other people's maybe mental health situations look like. Not really in that sense, but just like how much time you're expected to provide to the lab and things like that. So that's a
Yeah,
really
I
good
would
point.
say you can really ask people these questions outright. You can ask them directly, how many hours per week are you expected to work? How many hours per week do you actually work? Do you on average enjoy this? Would you recommend it to someone else? If you had it to do over again, would you pick this school? If you had it to do over again, would you pick working for this professor? There will be students who may not be comfortable answering directly, but from my experience, most students were happy to answer. Even the students who gave red flag answers were happy to give those answers. So I recommend just asking the students in addition to the professors. That's a great point.
Cool. Yeah, I think we all have it's interesting to see all our different opinions on the work-life balance and how it proceeds. So I think it's really great that we have all these differing opinions and just be able to reflect on all of them. But one of
Thank you for watching this segment of the It's a Material World podcast. For the full episode, hit the link in the description. We'll see you soon. And in the meantime, go change the world.